The birth rate has stayed below the replacement level for 10 years now. Okay. And that's going to show up in our future demographics. So you can have a blip and kind of get past it, but now we are deep in this. And so we've hit another record low in 2013 as they analyze the data. So according to the Census Bureau, American women now have on average 1.6 children, which is way below the 2.1 that we need to have replacement. So it's a trend that isn't really just about numbers. And what I want to talk about is how it shows up in neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, and the way children grow up, because things are changing.
Yeah.
Fewer babies can mean smaller classes. In school, it can mean shorter lines at the pediatrician, which on the surface sounds like, hey, that's a good thing. But it also means shrinking kindergarten rosters, fewer playmates in neighborhoods, and kind of increased pressure on parents and early childhood folks to get it right, because the fewer there are, the more precious they are and the more we need, because eventually that'll be fewer people working to pay into Social Security and all of those kinds of things. So a recent study from the Brookings Institution found what I thought was kind of surprising. Even though fewer babies are being born, families are investing more per child, which if you think about it, kind of does make sense. Yeah. Fewer children, you're going to put more into the child. So with many families having just one, sometimes two, there's really a higher focus on that high quality early learning environment, enrichment opportunities, emotional development. But at the same time, the American Enterprise Institute, which is a little bit of a more conservative think tank, had a really interesting, they went after why is this happening, and their study showed that many young adults actually want more children. So than they're having. Wow. And the researcher was Lyman Stone. If anybody want to look that up, that's this fertility gap is not about personal choice, and we hear a lot of that. That people are working, they're choosing not to have children. But what they found in this study is that it's about affordability, family leave, housing, and the availability of child care. And he kind of points out that when those barriers are removed, it may be more likely that people will grow their families. Yeah. Which again, kind of makes sense. So these are two different viewpoints, but what do they have in common? So researchers across the spectrum agree. Birth rate declining, the shift is changing what young families need. So whether it's high quality preschool, flexible work policies, community spaces that support play and connection, where I live, right? Yeah. The need for early childhood really hasn't been greater, because the fewer there are, the more we need to invest in them and make sure we don't leave anyone in the background. Yeah. So here in the Lowcountry, we're seeing the effects of this national shift. We opened South Carolina's first rural children's museum. You were there with me when we did that in St. George, thanks to the Boeing Company. And in its first year alone, we've had 7,000 visitors, which blew us all away. And they weren't just families looking for entertainment. They're looking for connection, learning, spaces where their children could really, explore safely.